Welcome back to Tranquility du Jour, episode 495. I'm your host, Kimberly Wilson, bringing you tranquility via the podcast since 2005. Today, we're talking all about creativity, one of the Tranquility du Jour tenets, and something incredibly close to my heart and probably your heart as a Tranquility du Jour listener. Today, I'm chatting with Diana Rowan, and we're discussing why creativity is so important, how it's an antidote to stress, her 5 steps to freeing the creative within, and more. Before we hear from Diana, I just want to remind you, if you're a new listener and new to Tranquility du Jour, there's a link in the show notes, which can be found at kimberlywilson.com/495. That will give you a little bit of insights. There's a new to Tranquility du Jour link, and then also you will find the show notes. So all the resources that we talk about in the show, in addition to a few events that are coming up. So the first thing, save the date, Saturday, July 11th. I'm offering another free event called TDJ Brunch with a side of tranquility. So this is my 3rd TDJ Brunch to offer during quarantine, and the idea is just to come together as a community on a Saturday at noon Eastern time, and then I usually will share some tips about all sorts of things. The first one was actually artist dates at home, and you can find these at on my YouTube channel, which is Tranquility du Jour. But this one is going to be talking about tranquility in the everyday, plus signature style. So that's what a side of tranquility means, because it's tranquility with a capital T at the end, which is my clothing line. And I'm also going to be joined by a few wonderful guests who are tranquility connoisseurs, talking about their favorite ways to wear the collection. But I'll be catering it really is this idea of how do we express our creativity and show up with signature style. So would love to have you. There's a link in the show notes to join, and you can also find this over on my blog, kimberlywilson.com/blog. So second, we have another virtual retreat coming up, and this one is mid-year focused. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, July 18th. So spend a day reviewing your year, and I know 2020 has been a year like no other, but I want to look at it, reflect on it. What are the lessons we're learning? As I tell you, it has been a year that has just continued to break me open in good ways, right? In challenging ways. And yet, really, that's how we transform. That's how we change. That's how we grow. And then also dreaming about what remains. Okay. So it is not over by any means. And so what is it that we wanted to manifest this year? What do we want to bring forth? How do we want to show up? And this will involve, of course, creativity, definitely some yoga, some mindfulness, and some journaling. So would love to have you join. There's a link to this in the show notes also. Now, I'm so excited to share this episode with you. So let's jump in. Diana Rowan is the author of The Bright Way. She's a professional harpist and has performed on 6 continents. She founded the Bright Knowledge Guild to be able to teach in the digital environment, and she offers students around the world access to her system through an ongoing membership program, several dynamic Facebook communities, and videos. She lives in the Bay Area. You can find her at dianarowan.com, DianaRowan.com. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you.
So congratulations on this new book, The Bright Way, 5 Steps to Freeing the Creative Within.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy about this book. It's been years in the making and about a year and a half of full-time writing.
Yeah, it is a journey, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's similarities on every creative path. You have a purpose and you start manifesting that purpose and you set intentions on how you're going to follow through on it. And then you start, following through, integrating everything. Nonetheless, I had to learn some new skills and learn how to speak as a writer of a book. I'd done a lot of writing for teaching and articles and especially online writing, but the first feedback that I got on my first drafts were, take your time. You're in way too much of a rush for what you're saying. Let it sink in. And I think I'd gotten used to, from teaching and working online, get to the result immediately. Go there, give a takeaway. And with a book, the best image that I got was from my agent, Claudia. She said, imagine who is reading this book? Where are they? They're opening this book one-on-one, and they're in the bath or they're in their bed. It's a very intimate thing. And they're saying, hey, can you show me something? And so really weave that story, show yourself. And when you show yourself, you become trustworthy. Other people are willing to then show themselves to you. So that was a really, really new skill that I had to learn, was a totally different style of writing.
Yeah, it's so beautifully put too, this idea of showing yourself and being vulnerable. And, that kind of leads to my first question, is what inspired you to write this book? So I assume creativity is clearly an important factor in your own life.
Yeah, I've been teaching about creativity for so long now. I've been teaching music for over 25 years, and I went through a pretty epic struggle with performance anxiety, and I managed to get through it. And it took me a very, very long time to get through it. And as I did get through it, I came to realize that in many ways, performance anxiety is an extreme version of the same anxieties everybody has about creativity, the doubts that people have about what they have to say, how they execute it, how other people will receive it. All of this is actually quite similar. So I began teaching people how to basically work through creative blocks and live more creatively in their lives in general. And as I began teaching much more online and to big groups, lightning struck. And it turns out one of my online students had been in the publishing industry for decades. And she approached me about writing a book. And I said, oh, yeah, sure. That sounds really, really fun. And that's where my first draft started, where I was speaking like much more fast and much more like an online teacher.
Right.
So, yeah, then I went on the journey I just described of the actual writing.
I like your description of it, though, of just how different it is, because I'm like you, right? As a teacher, it's like takeaways, right? But, you're like, sometimes, no, we have to take them on a journey. And yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was a fascinating skill to learn. I believe everybody's creative for a start. And, creativity is whatever you directly engage with. I'm actually watching my neighbor right now through the window. She's gardening out there with all these beautiful flowers. It's highly creative. She's also on the phone. So very, very creative. So when we want to manifest our creativity, I believe that we need to bring together skill and magic, as I call them. And as you bring those two things together, then you manifest much more. You actually have something to show for what you're doing. And so the skill part is all the technical ability, the rational part, the knowing how to craft, say, a narrative arc, knowing, how to grow all these different plants and which plants work together symbiotically, knowing which flavors work together when you're cooking, knowing how to hold a conversation. Those are all skillful things, practical things. And then the other side is the magic. And so that's the emotional side that you bring. And that's, when you describe the trust and vulnerability, how do we actually show up for those types of energies? How do we let the magic come in? The emotion, intuition, how do we cultivate those things? Inspiration. And I believe we can cultivate those just as deliberately as we cultivate the skill.
And so tell us about the Bright Way system that you've created and a little bit about what led you to create this system.
Well, after helping people for so long and so many different people, I've taught from age 3. I used to teach these group music classes which were quite hilarious, really. I mean, we were just, rolling around on the floor, and we would make instruments, we would sing and dance. And my oldest students have been in their 90s. I came to realize, there's actually a very, very similar trajectory that all humans have as creatives. And the most important thing is to tap into your purpose. And we have a purpose from day one. That's why even a 3-year-old will have a purpose. There's something that they bring out. There's something they communicate, and they won't have words for it, for a while. Nonetheless, they totally exhibit that purpose right from the get-go. And as we get older, I think we tend to lose touch with that purpose, or it gets, morphed into something that's not quite us anymore. So I believe that we all actually follow a very, very similar path as humans. And I think we translate that into the world in radically different ways. And that's our artistic voice, our creative voice. And it's very, very different for each of us, and rightfully so. And in fact, we want that difference, right? We really want to hear everybody's true nature coming out. So the 5 steps of the Brightway system are just 5 steps. And I know that seems incredibly simple in some ways, but the thing is, we all have a similar journey that we walk as humans. And I came to realize it really does boil down to these 5 steps, from having worked with so many different types of people in so many different fields and ages. And yeah, that's where the system came from, was that personal experience. And then through my journey, of working deeply in therapy, working with philosophy, I'm very interested in Greek philosophy. I'm really interested in comparative religions. So looking at different spiritual paths. And through all of these different sources, and many more as well, I distilled it down to these 5 steps.
And why is creativity like such an important part of life for you? I mean, I think I get it. I think a lot of listeners get it kind of in their own head, but I'm curious, why is it that you believe that creativity is so important? Because one of the things you mentioned before we started recording was the importance along the lines of resilience with creativity.
Yes. So I believe everyone is naturally creative. I think it's our nature to be creative. And in fact, I think we must be creative in order to feel fulfilled. During this crisis, we're currently in the virus crisis right now as we're talking. I think people are more present than they have been in a long time. And I think in that presence, that direct engagement with life, you actually feel more alive. And for me, the idea of creativity is direct engagement with your life. Whenever you directly engage with your life, you automatically transform the things that you're engaging with. You just can't help but change them somewhat. And that is creativity in action. I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding of creativity that it's only for artists. And I really disagree with that. And I disagree with that as an artist. I think creativity is so many things. It's whatever you directly engage with. You can be a highly creative business person, a highly creative parent, in almost any aspect of life, you can be creative. And that is by directly engaging with that thing. And as I mentioned, it does make you feel alive again. It makes you feel life has meaning. And this is why I think it's so important to be creative, because when life does not have meaning, I think we start to see great rates of anxiety and depression. And I'm encountering a lot of people right now almost guiltily saying to me, I don't want to go back to how it was before. I actually felt less connected to myself and my life. Yes, I feel very, very sad about the tragedies that are unfolding, but I'm also seeing a way forward that is much more hopeful. And to me, this is resilience, right? This is resilience in action. When we are creative, we get to encounter our true power again. We reclaim our real power, and we don't feel like victims of life anymore. We feel like we do have agency, and what we do does matter. It doesn't mean everything will always work out the way we want it to, or can ever work out 100% the way we want it to. But it does mean that we have great agency in life again, and we have meaning. And resilience to me is the ability to bounce back from adversity. It isn't meaning we're going to eliminate adversity. Not at all. Actually, I do think adversity resistance is part of life. And I think our response to it is a great source of beauty. I think humans, as they respond to challenges, they create beauty. And all of this is so highly exciting to me. When I think of a world where people are bringing their true selves, they're showing resilience, they're creating beauty. I mean, I want to live in that world.
Right. Well, and you have these 5 steps, right? So step 1, define your purpose. 2, set your intentions. 3, create your practicum plan. 4, integration, and 5, fulfillment. Can you walk us through these steps with just a little bit of instruction to kind of inform our listeners about these 5 steps?
Sure. So for each of these steps, I talk about why they're important, and then I give exercises about how to actually complete that step. Because I've found that it's actually fairly easy to get people inspired and fired up about things. I think, humans oftentimes are initially optimistic. I think they can orient towards that quite easily. It's the follow through that is difficult. So I really wanted to have a book that's a handbook, a handbook for our times in many ways, where it actually prompts people to action. You can take action, and each of the exercises that are offered are ones that have been tested hundreds of times, literally. So they're very simple and very effective, because I just don't want to leave people hanging. I think it's that teacher in me as well, that I think you relate to, that I want to have something that people can walk away with. So for purpose, I start with purpose because if we don't know our purpose, then setting goals or intentions is just a shot in the dark. So it may seem that, oh my goodness, setting your purpose, like defining that right from the beginning, that's a tall order. It's actually not, because I do believe, as I mentioned earlier, your purpose is with you from day one. And so the exercise there in that step involves going back to your childhood and remembering times where you felt completely lost in joy and completely involved in something. And as you remember those feelings, and there are written prompts, because I do believe that writing unleashes all these wonderful memories. In those memories, as you write them down, your purpose is embodied. So you will be able to come away with a working version of your purpose right from that exercise. So then from that working version of your purpose, you start setting intentions, which is step number 2. And so intentions look a lot like goals, but goals to me are a little bit end game. That's the ultimate aim of your intention. Whereas intentions are more process oriented. And ultimately, any goal is only reached by a process, by actually taking the journey. You don't just arrive at the goal, right? You actually have to walk the journey. So for me, setting an intention is more present, and it's more doable. It's more exciting because you're not feeling inadequate. I haven't reached my goal. I'm just looking at the top of the mountain, and it's not going to be okay until I get there. No, when you set an intention, every moment that you're walking towards that mountaintop is a victory, and it's an achievement, and it's something to be lived and celebrated. And For me, actually, the only thing is the journey. I mean, the destination is simply the byproduct of the journey. I notice when people set goals, oftentimes they become almost like hostage to those goals, and the goals become like a prison and a drag, honestly, and so then we tend to avoid them, which is a total backfire, in my opinion. So step number 2 is set your intentions, and your intentions are completely derived from your purpose. So your intentions are, how can I manifest my purpose in the world? And then I have some exercises around how to set your intentions. And the initial intentions, I recommend setting 3 or less, a doable number. If we have a really long list of like 20 intentions, I think that's a bit overwhelming.
Right.
Yeah. So with that in mind, we move on to step 3, which is the practicum plan. And that's a very skill-based step. And that's okay, we've got our purpose, we've got our intentions to support our purpose. How are we going to manifest this thing? And so we start setting some very practical parameters around that. And so the skill and magic, so if we could say that the purpose and the intentions are more sort of on the magical plane, then step number 3 is very skill-based. Then step number 4 is integration. And this is where you try everything out. You see what works and what doesn't. And we come from a place of discernment when we do that. So we're going to avoid judgment. Judgment is something that stops creativity in its tracks. But that doesn't mean when we let go of judgment that, that anything goes then. We're never going to end up with any type of quality. No, we can still use discernment. And discernment is this thing working or not? And if it is working, great. And we'll find out why, so we can really capitalize on that. If it's not working, then we also just go, well, why isn't it working? Rather than judge it and say, that's really bad. I have no talent. I can't do these things. You're just like, no, it's not working. All right. Let's find out why. And that's really valuable information. So integration mainly walks you through the process of discernment and how to make that a regular part of your life and a very empowering part of your life. And then we reach step 5, which is fulfillment. And that's where you really celebrate all your successes, no matter how tiny they are or how unremarkable they may be to other people. It doesn't matter. Or remarkable. They may be amazing. It really, again, doesn't matter what other people think. It's about what you think. So when you celebrate your successes fully, and this also involves sitting down and writing, and I've never had anybody be disappointed in this step. I get a lot of resistance to it. People feel like, I'm not going to have anything to write. And they're always amazed at the outpouring of successes once they get going. When we sit and really fill up with those successes, number 1, it really brings us a great deal of joy. And that is what spurs us forward in motivation and in inspiration. And it also builds up our resilience, because if we feel good about ourselves, we can cope with setbacks and we can deal with disappointments because we've already filled up with a type of self-esteem that is unshakable. Another resistance I get sometimes is people fear that, if I go through this, I'll become, insufferably arrogant or something. And I'm like, actually, the opposite is going to happen. What's going to happen is you're going to be able to celebrate other people's successes even more. Other people are going to not seem like, that's a reflection on you not doing well. No, their successes just say, wow, this thing is actually possible in this world. That's exciting. Or else you're just excited for them. And, it's not necessarily anything that you want to do personally. You're just like, that's really cool. So in practicing fulfillment, it's a total win. And then because the 5 steps work in a cycle, you get to revisit your purpose again from this new state of consciousness, really, and say, okay, this is my purpose as I've stated it. Is there a word here or there that I need to tweak? Or for some people, their purpose is actually a symbol or a feeling or a sound. Is there any refinement that I want to bring to my purpose? And then you go around the cycle again.
Yeah, I love that it's this wheel, right? So listeners, on the back of it, on the back of the cover, and then also in the book, there's this beautiful wheel that's been created that kind of walks you through this process.
Yeah, I'm really influenced by nature. Nature is something I think we can all agree on, no matter what backgrounds or era or anything, nature is something we can all say exists. And nature functions in cycles. So I really wanted to use cycles as the template for creativity, essentially, right? So nature is a huge template for creativity, maybe the ultimate template for creativity on our planet. And so I wanted a creative system that wasn't linear. I wanted it to be a cycle. And so that's why it works in a wheel.
And Diana, I think one of the things that, as you say, cycle that I really like is, for a lot of people, it can be a challenge to not be constantly producing. Like, say, you've done this book and people might be like, so what's next? What's next? And, with nature, right? You've probably been getting all those questions, but,
yes.
You're like, let me just heal from birthing this baby. But, it's like with these cycles, nature has to lie fallow, right? And kind of regenerate, and seeds have to be planted, and then they have to grow, and then we harvest. And so can you speak a little bit to the, that cycle of our creative process?
Absolutely. I think creativity is not about producing. I think creativity is all about the process. And just as you said, it's a process that has seasons. There will be times in the season where you need to let the field lie fallow, but is nothing happening? No, that's actually not true. It's what's happening is the whole field is regenerating. There's actually a lot happening. I remember, I think it was Marianne Williamson talking about when she was pregnant. She sat there and she was drinking a cup of tea, and she said, at this moment, the only thing I need to do is sit here and let this pregnancy gestate. That is highly creative, because she's a very driven person in many ways. But she realized the most creative thing she could do at that moment was to sit quietly and sip that tea. And I think in our society, we get very obsessed with the product of creativity. And again, I think the product is simply like a milestone on the journey. Yeah, we want to have products. I think we want to feel accomplishment, but they only exist because we went on that journey. And the journey is only sustainable if it goes through cycles. And some of those cycles may look unproductive. But to me, that is not honoring the more yin side of the cycle, the more dark side of the cycle, where it's more receptive, it's more receiving, it's letting things come to you. If we drive forward constantly with this more sort of yang energy, this more driven energy, more sunny energy, all we're going to do is burn out. And I love that energy. Of course I do, but the thing is, it's only sustainable if it's balanced with the more receptive energy as well. And nature absolutely shows us that if we are going to be sunny all the time, we're going to end up like a desert.
What a beautiful image, because I think you're so, so right. And I think it's really challenging. I mean, with our society, we love to produce. I'm so product. And yet the process is so important, right? And yet it's not where, with process, it's not as easy to check something off the list, right? And so it's how to be more comfortable in that space. And I don't think it's easy. I think it's more natural for some than others. And not to say that we can't learn to be more comfortable in that space, because I think it's critical for our emotional, mental, physical health. So I'm curious how you work to help clients kind of get a little more invested, or comfortable in process.
Yeah, I think, with step 5, which is celebrating fulfillment, when you've gone through that once, you get a taste for how to celebrate all the time. So every success that you have, you're like, oh, that was good. Yeah, I feel really happy about that one little thing that I did today that went really well. And those celebrations of those little steps and recognizing them as all contributing to the grander process, they give you a sense of momentum so that you're not just waiting around and only feeling success once you've actually completed the project. I think as you're going through your day, taking moments to say, oh yeah, that was good. Yeah, I'm happy about that. I appreciate that. I think that is absolutely crucial, and it's very doable. And I'm seeing people do it more right now because people are more present at this moment simply because the future is entirely uncertain and we can't predict what's going to happen. And so all our habits and patterns are now really in question. And because of that, I'm noticing that people are appreciating the little things around them much more and the little things that they're doing much more. So I think those are, to me, the templates for this greater appreciation, as you're mentioning, of the process rather than just waiting until the product is finished. So celebrating all the little successes, which are actually huge, right? I mean, in the end, those are what are making the thing happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if there's one thing that you would like readers to take away from this book, what would you say it is? Because I feel like we've tapped into so many things, from the importance of creativity to how it helps with resilience to process versus product and your 5 steps. So is there like one particular nugget that you just really want to hammer home? Gently, of course. Sounds so harsh.
I mean, it's funny you're saying hammer, because actually for the first time in my life, I've started getting really into interior design. And it's, because I'm stuck in the house, which is great, and finally paying attention to it. So this is, I'm with the hammer every day now. Yes, there is something. And it's a 3-part offering, all very related. The first part is that everyone is creative. You are naturally creative. So you're just born creative. It's not only for the talented. So number 1, everyone is creative. And by the way, I don't believe in talent at all. It's just that people tend to say, oh, some are talented or some are not. No, everyone is creative. The second part is that you actually must be creative in order to feel fulfilled. And creativity is direct engagement with whatever you're doing. If we're not directly engaged, we won't feel fulfilled. So this is why creativity is so important. It makes us feel fulfilled. And the third part is you can be creative at any time, any place, any age. You can do it right now. You don't have to wait for the stars to align and, to have that special set of pens or access to that course. No, you can be creative right now, no matter what your circumstance. So it's those 3 things. Everyone is creative. We must be creative in order to feel fulfilled. And you can be creative at any time, any place.
Yeah, these are such great reminders. And as you said, kind of, oh, I have to have the right pens, or I have to take this class first, or I need to go on this retreat first. It's like, okay, well, how can I get started now? Because there's, this whole thing, oh, well, I'm 40. It's just too late. I've missed my boat. And it's like, okay, we're going to be 40 no matter what. So do you want to be 40 and have started piano lessons, or do you want to be 40 and have not started piano lessons? Right?
Right. I mean, the oldest student that I started on an instrument was a harpist at 83 years old. And within a year and a half, she was putting her harp in her car, driving it to various hospitals around the Bay Area and performing for people. I mean, honestly, you can start at any time. I've seen it numerous times. And I do understand that statement, like we think we're too old. There's a story in the book where when I was 21, I said I was too old to go back to music. So no matter what, all of that stuff just doesn't matter. There's sort of no point in arguing with ourselves about our age or, because here we are, we're here in the present and that's all we have. And it's everything we need. It's good enough to start.
Absolutely. Great reminders. And my last question for you, Diana, is the name of this podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So I'm curious for you, how are you finding tranquility in your everyday right now? Sounds like design.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going through, all these colors and choosing them for the walls and, the fabrics. And it really gives me a sense of creating my environment and creating a place that I want to feel part of, like putting my stamp on the house, in a positive way. And it makes me feel peace. So yeah, by interacting with my space and making it feel more part of me, it gives me a feeling of tranquility.
Yeah. And, and something that you said earlier, I think really ties into this. I mean, we are homebound, right? So we are paying more attention to our space. I mean, it's being forced upon us, right? So I love that in turn has inspired you to do more within your space. And I'm sure many other people have, from like getting plants to like, I've got twinkle lights up, which, I usually do, but I brought them into yet another room. And, the importance of flowers right now in particular. I mean, all these sorts of things that just can really help nourish us in our surroundings and settings. So it's just beautiful.
I mean, we're so rich in so many ways. I mean, people are going into closets, I know I am, and finding all these things. I'm like, whoa, what was this doing in the closet? This is a great thing. I spent hours looking for the right comforter cover. And then as I was going through one of our linen closets, I found the perfect cover. And I was like, what? This was here the whole time. We already had it, So I think we're coming to realize how many wonderful things we actually already have, or something, just needs a little bit of a tweak and then it's the perfect thing. So I think we're realizing just how incredibly rich we are in many, many ways.
Yeah, I love the idea of like shopping your own closet, shop your own cupboards, to see what you've got in there, because there's a lot of good stuff.
There's so much. I mean, the decluttering books have been wildly popular for so long. I mean, people have a lot of stuff and, it's not all junk. I think there's use for it. So I think, people are maybe looking at their stuff, and I know I am, and finding it to be actually super useful, and I'm pleased about it.
Well, Diana, thank you so much for being on the show, and congratulations on this new book, The Bright Way.
Thank you, Kimberly. It's just so fun to be on this beautiful podcast.
You can find Diana on Facebook at Diana Rowan's Brightway Guild, on Instagram at Diana Rowan, on YouTube, and then, of course, on Twitter. And Twitter, it's Diana Harp. There's a link to all of these in the show notes, in addition to a link to her book, The Bright Way, 5 Steps to Freeing the Creative Within. So a reminder that we have a Tranquility du Jour Insiders Facebook group where we share resources, get inspirations, make connections, and have an online book club. Right now we're reading White Fragility, and we'll be transitioning into a new book over the next couple of weeks. So I'd love to have you join us. Also, if you have a moment to share a review of this podcast or any of my books on iTunes, Amazon, or Goodreads, would be so, so grateful. And details for this are at KimberlyWilson.com/review. So I wanted to share a review that came through recently on 52 Weeks of Tranquility, which is a program I put out in 2015 and then released as a book also at the end of that year. So Cheryl writes, I purchased this journal for myself with a gift card I received. I began using it at the beginning of the year, and what a year it has been. The journal can be started at any time, though, and I do skip around and do not follow in its exact order. Every weekend, I look forward to sitting down and reading, reflecting, and writing in it, usually with a cup of hot coffee or tea, depending on the time of day. I love the way the author opens up her heart, mind, and spirit and encourages the reader to do the same. Her writing is open, honest, caring, and supportive, and she provides useful tools to get us closer to our best lives and, most importantly, our best selves. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for your generous review of 52 Weeks of Tranquility. I really, really appreciate it. Also, a reminder that you can find all the episodes, yes, all 494 of them, on the Tranquility du Jour podcast app, and it's available for iPhone and Android. Link to that in the show notes. Also, be sure to hit subscribe for your favorite podcast apps such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Overcast. I have a link to these in the show notes. Would love to have you getting Tranquility du Jour into your ears every week. And there are so many amazing back episodes, many focused on creativity for you to enjoy. Finally, there's a link to my 6 books and a space to sign up for Love Notes, which gives you weekly inbox love of invites, inspiration, and more. Also, links to follow me on social media and to shop seasonless, vegan, locally made, eco-friendly fashion Tranquility, which we'll be talking more about at the TDJ Brunch on July 11th. So wishing you guys a wonderful week ahead. And those of you who are stateside, a very, very happy 4th. And I can't wait to connect with you again next week. Also, just a reminder, the 500th episode is coming up, and I would love to know what would make it special. So drop me a note, hello@KimberlyWilson.com, and just let me know, what is it that would make this episode, this milestone episode, special to you? Namaste.